Thank you, Biddy. Next up, Patrick McKenna comes from the village of Caledon, County Tyrone. He splits his time between engineering and running his family sheep farm. He takes his inspiration from the people and landscapes of the local countryside. This year, he continues his journey in writing as part of the local writing community, and we're delighted to have him back tonight reading True Colours. Welcome, Patrick.
Hello there, everybody. This is a story I've written about my mother, and it's from her perspective. She's here tonight, so I hope I've done her justice. And I'd like to say thanks to Biddy and Rachel once again for selecting me for flash fiction. True Colours. The Bramley apple tree is an odd thing that spends its leafless months in spiderish fashion with limbs splayed low. As I pull from the Bramley tree, the crisp snap of the stem signals that it is ripe for picking. Any earlier and it would have twisted in a green swirl and been a struggle to free it from the branch. The grass around the tree is lush with dew. I dance between the nettles while stretching to pick an apple overhead like a maypole dancer. The ground is awash with windfalls that have been picked over by birds and vermin. This is a small orchard, and it isn't worth my time collecting them for cider, so they are allowed to rot and add nutrition back to the soil. An army of my closest relatives will complete the harvest every year. Growing up in a busy house, I always enjoyed observing the coming and going of people. At a very young age, I found that everyone had a voice that needed to be heard. Whether that was in the kitchen of my childhood bungalow or the treatment room I worked in for years as a nurse. I recognised that some people's ailments seemed to disappear after minutes of light, friendly conversation. I held space for them. I soothed them with my voice as best I could, just as I have sung lullabies to my own children. I could see the difference in them when they left the GP's surgery. They always breathed easier on the way out the door. My retirement from nursing looms. Lulled by the meditative repetition of the task at hand, I dwell on the windfalls of my own life, the things that pass me by. On these long nights where I assisted the surgeons in the crucible of the surgical theatre, I let my mind drift to thoughts of a different career. Oil painting was never more than a hobby. My mother was a seamstress, and in the past I dreamed of making dresses like Mummy did. Sometimes I still do. As a little girl, I had often taken a small boat with Daddy on the tender wave of Loch Ness. He was strong in his youth, though his rowing motion wasn't a muscular crash, but rather a careful movement that carved through the water with efficiency. There was a time when the loch was teeming with fishermen. The men built Daddy's boat together in the big, wide shed, with great shouts and cries. Then a sudden bang of iron, they fastened the timber in place. Wooden planks were bent and shaped with steam into hulls that, when turned upside down, resembled the rib cage of a malnourished beast. They would curse the process and swear never to build another boat in this fashion. They got their wish. Eventually, these wooden structures were relegated to rowboats. The natural material fell out of favour, exchanged for lighter and cheaper sheets that could be formed with ease. Daddy told us not to breathe it in. The fibres were tiny and could harm our lungs. The fiberglass seemed easier to work, but the satisfaction wasn't as great for the craftsman. There aren't many fishermen or boat builders left. The narrow sandbank at the loch's edge is golden. September's yawning, and summer still presses up the sky overhead. The clouds are raked in thin lines parallel to the loch, a soft barricade. The late August sunset is cast over the little orchard, like light filtered through stained cathedral glass. Shades that, in an instant, remind me of the oil paints on my old art palette. Deep cadmium yellow bleeds over indigo, crowned by a halo of cobalt blue. I stare up at the higher branches. The biggest apples seem to grow at the top, their leaves having received the best access to sunlight. The large bromlies perch in the tree, orbs of permanent rose and viridian green. They have always seemed out of reach. It has been a long time since I worked with oil paints, and yet they are all that I can think about as I turn my back on the orchard and gaze out onto the body of water before me. I watch the waters lap against the little weather-beaten boats of varying pastel colours, huddled and bobbing at the jetty. I look down at the apples I have picked from the tree. They nestle in my woven basket. I feel the warm, gentle wind blowing from the sunset. I am proud of my harvest.